try to buzz through this relatively quickly so you can get on with your evening. Right now we have in front of us the Omnibus Jobs and Economic Growth Finance and Policy Omnibus Bill. This budget puts a strong focus on public-private partnerships that promote job growth as well as economic and workforce development opportunities throughout the state of Minnesota. We do this by providing additional resources to the Job Creation Fund, Minnesota Investment Fund, and Redevelopment Grant Program. We make additional investments to workforce housing grants and the Job Skills Partnership Program, a program where employers work together with higher education institutions to provide workforce training and retraining opportunities for workers. Additionally, we increase base funding to the Extended Employment Program to provide employment opportunities to people with disabilities and honor our military men and women by providing funding to the Helmets to Hard Hats program, which provides training and employment opportunities to veterans and individuals returning from active duty. There are a number of different initiatives also included, including the border-to-border broadband program, a $20 million investment that prioritizes unserved areas, Bridges to Healthcare, Fighting Chance, Twin Cities Rise, North Market, DigiKey, grants to Nonprofit Assistance Fund, American Indians Workforce Pilot, additional investments for Centers for Independent Living, Youth Skills Training, and the Pipeline Project. So with that, Madam Chair, I think if it's appropriate and okay with you and the committee, I'd like to bring up Fiscal and Council to go through the spreadsheet and the language of the bill.
Senator Miller, I think that's up to Julie Rosen.
Madam Chair, you have a packed house tonight.
Yes, we do, Senator Miller. So you've introduced the bill?
Madam Chair, yes, so we went through the very general overview, and if it's appropriate for you, we can bring up Fiscal and Council to go through the spreadsheet and the language of the bill. And then I do have an amendment after Fiscal goes through this. Actually, Madam Chair and members, maybe we should do that first.
You know what? No, Senator Miller, what we'll do is just go through this, and we'll do the amendment, and then any other amendments. That would be fine.
We have one amendment, Madam Chair, that reflects the numbers in the spreadsheet. There's just a change in the language of the bill.
It's just technical? Okay. Well, then maybe we will do that.
But whenever you're ready, so we can.
Yep. Mr. Mum. Let's address that technical amendment then.
So, Madam Chair and members, it should be the A7 amendment.
Okay, do we have it? Okay, we will be passing that amendment out, members.
I'll take one.
I have one. Thank you. You have one?
Sure. Okay, Senator Fischbach moves the A7 amendment. Mr. Mums?
Madam Chair and members, the A7 amendment just clarifies the appropriation to Twin Cities Rise to reflect the purposes that are shown on the spreadsheet.
And Mr. Mum, what line is that on the Twin
On the
Cities?
spreadsheet,
On the spreadsheet.
those are on lines 137 and 138.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Questions to the amendment? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. Amendment is adopted. Mr. Mums, to the spreadsheet, please.
Madam Chair and members, walking through the spreadsheet, I will start with the total appropriations in the bill, then do a summary by agency, and then go through the spreadsheet and hit on the change items in the order that they appear. So the total appropriations in the bill, which are found on lines 424 through 429 of the spreadsheet, that is on page 9 of the spreadsheet, show a total direct appropriation amount of $318,659,000 for the biennium. Of that amount, $190,832,000 is from the general fund, $72,651,000 is from the workforce development fund, $53,776,000 is from the workers' compensation fund, and $1.4 million is from the remediation fund. If you look at the subtotals for each agency, the Department of Employment and Economic Development has a total appropriation of $253,421,000, and that is on line 270, which is on page 6. That breaks down into $183,684,000 from the general fund, $68,337,000 from the workforce development fund, and $1.4 million from the remediation fund. The appropriation totals for the Department of Labor and Industry are found on lines 348 through 352 on page 8. The total is $56,668,000. $2.404 million of that is from the general fund. $49.95 million is from the workers' compensation fund, and $4.314 million is from the workforce development fund. And staying on page 8, the Bureau of Mediation Services has a total biennial appropriation of $4.494 million. That's on line 377. The Public Employee Relations Board has a total appropriation of $250,000 from the general fund on line 387. And the Workers' Compensation Court of Appeals total appropriation is on line 391, and it's $3.826 million from the Workers' Compensation Fund. So flipping back to page 1, I will go through the entire sheet and explain the change items that are shown. The first is on line 6, and it shows a $3 million biennial increase to the Minnesota Investment Fund from $22 million to $25 million. This includes a set-aside amount of $4 million for the DigiKey expansion in Thief River Falls. Line 8 shows a $3 million increase to the Minnesota Job Creation Fund. Line 9 shows increase or funds the redevelopment fund at $3 million per biennium. Line 10 shows an increase to the workforce housing development grants by $2 million from $4 million to $6 million for the biennium. Line 18 shows a reduction of $500,000 from $1.5 million to $1 million for the Emerging Entrepreneurs Fund. Line 17 shows a $1.107 million increase to the Job Skills Partnership Program. Line 25 reduces the Film and TV Board's Jobs Production Fund by $2 million, reducing it from $3 to $1 million for the biennium. The Host Community Economic Development Program on line 26 has been removed. That's a decrease of $1.75 million for the biennium. Line 27 shows a one-time grant to the Community Economic Development Associates to conduct a study of the southeast Minnesota economy at, and the grant amount is $275,000 in fiscal year 18. Line 28 shows the $2 million grant to the Pillsbury United Communities Grocery Store Project. That is from the general fund and came from Senator Champion's Senate File 1287. And then on the next page, on line 54, there is a one-time general fund savings of $1.232 million. And this comes from the fiscal note that was prepared for Senate File 1456, which allows communities with Minnesota Investment Fund balance to return 20% of their balance to the general fund. continuing on still on page 2, but in the broadband section, on line 80 is the appropriation for the border-to-border broadband grant program. The appropriation is $10 million per fiscal year for a total of 20 for the biennium. And this is an increase of $20 million over the base. There's no border-to-border broadband grants in the base. Moving on to the third page, on line 101, the Pathways to Prosperity General Fund line appropriation is reduced from 1 million from 4.078 to 3.078 million. Line 102 decreases the Youth at Work General Fund appropriation from 2 million to 1 million. Line 105 decreases the Grants to Southeast Asian Communities appropriation from 2 million to 1 million. Line 106 decreases the Grants to Promote Economic Self-Sufficiency from 3 million to 1.5 million. Line 107 decreases the grants program for non-traditional jobs from 2 million to 1 million. Line 108 through 113 and also line 115 show appropriations that have been shifted to from being funded through the general fund to being funded through the Workforce Development Fund. And the corresponding lines to show those appropriations from the Workforce Development Fund are on lines 133 to 140. The amounts are the same, and that represents a total of 9.15 million for the biennium that has been shifted from the general fund to the Workforce Development Fund. Moving back up to line 117 is a one-time grant of $50,000 from the general fund to the Fighting Chance program. That comes from Senator Paul Anderson's Senate File 1403. Line 118 shows a one-time grant of $100,000 per year from the general fund to the Getting to Work program that came from Senator Ingebrigtsen's Senate File 758. Line 144, down in the Workforce Development Fund section, shows a one-time grant from the Workforce Development Fund of $250,000 per year to the Bridges for Healthcare program. That came from Senator Senjum's Senate File 1938. Line 145 shows a one-time grant for an American Indian Workforce Pilot Program in the amount of $230,000 from the Workforce Development Fund. That came from Senator Box, Senate File 1034. Line 146 shows a one-time grant of $20,000 to the Cook County Higher Education Board from Senator Box, Senate File 495. And line 147 shows a one-time grant of $500,000 per year to the Nonprofits Association Fund. This came from Senator Draheim's Senate File 2000. Moving on to page 5, skipping over page 4. On line 203, there is a shift of $5 million from the vocational rehab program from the general fund to the Workforce Development Fund. The corresponding appropriation is shown on line 210. On line 204, there's an increase of $500,000 per year, or I'm sorry, for the biennium to the Centers for Independent Living grants. That's an increase from 5.522 million to 6.022 million. And on line 205 is a $1 million increase from 11.99 million to 12.99 million for extended employment services. Down towards the bottom on line 244 is a $1 million decrease to the capacity building grants appropriation. It's a decrease from 2 million to 1 million. And in the Department of Labor and Industry section on page 7, line 305, is a one-time appropriation of $200,000 per year from the Workforce Development Fund to the Helmets to Hard Hats organization. This is from Senator Goggins, Senate File 1350. On line 333 is the appropriation, a $300,000 a year appropriation from the Workforce Development Fund for the pipeline project. This is from Senator Senjum's Senate File 1846. And finally, on line 338 is an appropriation for the Youth Skills Training Program in Senator Paul Anderson's Senate File 474 of $200,000 in fiscal year 18 and $500,000 in fiscal year 19. And that concludes the change items in the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Mumm. Does this spreadsheet meet our budget targets and our budget rules, Mr. Mumm?
Madam Chair and members, the spreadsheet meets the budget targets and satisfies the budget rules.
Thank you very much. Senator Cohen.
Madam Chair and Senator Miller, in trying to listen or go through the spreadsheet, and I had a chance to look at it earlier today, why do we have some of the appropriations? I'm looking at, for instance, the Youth Skills Program. I think there are a couple other places where we have an amount appropriated for this biennium, but then it increases in the next biennium.
Senator Miller.
Madam Chair, Senator Cohn, can you give me a line item? And I had a hard time hearing you as
Sure.
well.
338 is an example.
Senator Miller.
Madam Chair, Senator Cohn, so the Youth Skills Training Program, the reason why fiscal year 18-19 is lower than fiscal year 2021, the first year, they just needed a smaller amount of money for startup to get going, and it's only a partial year, from my understanding. So they only asked for $700,000 for fiscal year 18 and 19, and then that $500,000 carries over in the tails.
Senator Cohen.
And Madam Chair, Senator Miller, I thought I'd heard another place, a couple other places where that happened. Maybe I could ask Mr. Mumm, is there any place else where that happens in the spreadsheet?
Senator Miller. Senator Miller.
Madam Chair, Senator Cohn, there may be scenarios where where 18 and 19 funding is different than in the tails, but I can't think of any other scenarios where that are exactly like 338.
So you mean like in-depth here and then the base is more? I don't know.
Senator Miller.
And Madam Chair, Senator Cohn, there are some cases like in Minnesota Investment Fund, Job Creation Fund, where we had some additional increases in the tails. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, Senator Cohn, but I'm trying to.
Well,
Senator Cohen.
yeah, Madam Chair, Senator Miller, thanks. And I was trying to follow that. So you just mentioned the Job Creation Fund as an example. Why an increase of, what, $3 million in the next biennium?
So Madam Chair,
Senator
Senator
Miller.
Cohn, so the Job Creation Fund fiscal year 18-19 is $16 million, and it's the same in 2021.
Or the
Senator
redevelopment? The redevelopment?
Madam Chair,
Senator Miller.
Senator Cohn, the redevelopment fund, so this is on line 9. We had $3 million in fiscal year 18 and 19, and yes, you're correct, we increased it by $1 million in the tails. And then
Senator
there are
Cohn.
some cases, Minnesota Investment Fund, we also were able to increase in the tails.
Senator Cohen, can you pull your microphone just a little better?
I'm
Thank you.
sorry. So why do we increase some of those appropriations in the tails? That's a little bit unusual.
Madam
Senator
Chair,
Miller.
Senator Cohn, there were some cases where we had one-time spending in 18 and 19, so we had some additional money in 2021. So I looked at some priorities, and as a committee, we looked at different priorities, and the Minnesota Investment Fund was one of those, and the redevelopment fund was another one of those priorities.
And fits with your targets.
Madam Chair, absolutely. The spreadsheet is within our targets.
Senator Cohen?
No, that's fine, thanks.
Thank you. Senator Champion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Senator Miller, because I know you worked really hard on this bill. I just like to point out a couple things. One is, just to kind of answer what I believe Senator Cohen was maybe alluding to, is that if you go back and really look at the equity provisions that we passed last session, and that Senator Hayden and I worked really hard on making sure that we geographically made sure that we looked throughout the entire state and looked at communities that were having a very difficult time, and not just from our perspective, but that was also articulated by Susan Brower, who is the demographer. And we were really pushed from the demographer to say that if we don't do something to really think seriously about these communities of color, that we will end up in a challenging space as a state. And as a result of that call, that clarion call, what we attempted to do was to create a balance of direct appropriations, and those direct appropriations went to organizations that were fiscally sound, who could also work within the bowels of various communities in order to make sure that money would get to those communities who were really working on the ground. And there was a balance of competitive grants, because we knew that there were some people who didn't have an opportunity to come in and testify, but we understood that this pot of money would be important. The reason why I'm going through that in order to make sure I clearly articulate as best as possible what I believe that Senator Cohen was alluding to is because in this bill, what happens is that the direct appropriations stay in place for 18 and 19. And then in the tails, which is in 20 and 21, those direct appropriations are eliminated. And that's a tough thing to do, even though I recognize that a part of it is we want to make sure that people will have an opportunity to come back and really talk about the success of those programs and their initiatives. But I think the way that we're doing it is not the best way of doing it, in my opinion. Secondly, I also talked about the competitive grants, and the competitive grants are being initially decreased, I should say. And when you look at those competitive grants, for an example, that are being cut, that would be Pathways to Prosperity, which is a program that helps low-wage and low-skilled adults who have multiple barriers to employment obtain credentials and skills that prepare them for jobs in growing fields such as healthcare and manufacturing. It also cuts youth at work programs, and those programs provide employment and training services for youth of color and youth with disabilities and/or at-risk youth. It also cuts women in high-wage, high-demand, non-traditional jobs grant by $1 million, and that grant program focuses on closing the gender pay gap and encourages women to enter non-traditional fields such as science and technology, engineering and math, or construction. It also cuts the Southeast Asian Economic Relief Competitive Grant, which is a program to address economic disparities in the Southeast Asian communities through workforce recruitment and development, job creation, increased capacity of smaller organizations and outreach. Also, it cuts the support services competitive grants by $1.5 million, and those programs will focus on low-income communities, young adults from low-income families and communities of color, offering job training, employment preparation, and internships, on and on and on. And when you begin to even look at the capacity building grants, the emerging entrepreneur grants, it does a unfortunate, challenging job to those grants. And so I would hope that as we go forward, because I don't have an amendment to restore those funds, because I recognize you and I have been talking about this increased need and that we still have to be very surgical, because prior to, there were a lot of competitive grants and these communities were still being left behind. So when we were enjoying less than 3% unemployment rate, the communities that I've just sort of highlighted and were being hit really bad. One other group I would like to make sure that I don't forget, even when we begin to look at cutting the direct appropriations, we are also going to cut, for an example, White Earth. And those grants were provided for business assistance with workforce development, outreach, technical assistance, infrastructure, and operational support. Those are just some of the even direct appropriations that's going to do a challenging or create more of a challenge for those groups. So I don't have, as I mentioned earlier, an amendment, but I would hope that we will continue to work on it, and I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about it and talk about your thoughts there, and then I do have a couple of amendments then.
Senator Miller.
Madam Chair, Senator Champion and I have had this conversation as he's on the Jobs Committee, and he's right. We did, so every organization that had a direct pass-through commitment to them, we honored that in fiscal year 18 and 19, whether it was from the general fund or the workforce development fund. And one of the things that is concerning to me is that these organizations have ongoing base funding in our budget, and as the chairman of the committee and discussion that we had in the committee, first of all, I'm concerned, I don't think it's good policy to have direct ongoing pass-through appropriations. And number two, I feel it's our responsibility as the legislature to hold these organizations accountable. So we want to make sure that they're getting results for the investment that we as the legislature, that the taxpayers of Minnesota are putting into those organizations. And one way that we can do that is we can bring them back in front of the committee and have them share their story and share the results that they're getting. So to me, it's a policy and an accountability issue, and these are all good organizations, whether they were from the equity grants or whether it's Big Brothers Big Sisters or the YWCA. I was a big brother for many years in Winona. It's nothing against these organizations. It's just simply our responsibility to make sure that we're holding them accountable. Additionally, one of the things that I was disappointed in the last budget cycle were reductions to the Minnesota Investment Fund by $15 million over the biennium, the Job Creation Fund by $9.7 million over the biennium, the Job Skills Training Program, $2.6 million. So just those three programs, which I truly see as priorities for the entire state. We want to focus on the entire state of Minnesota. We want to make sure that there's job growth, economic development, workforce development opportunities throughout the state of Minnesota, greater Minnesota, metro area, suburban, urban. And to me, the Minnesota Investment Fund, the Job Creation Fund, the Job Skills Training Program are three of the best programs that we have as a state to do that: jobs, economic growth, workforce development. And unfortunately, those programs were cut $27 million. Now, we didn't have the resources or the target to restore all that money, but we did make an effort to try to restore some of those funds, and that's reflected in our budget.
Senator Champion.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair. But there's a couple things that I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of, because I often hear many different people say that good policy is when everyone is competing. And if we all were starting at the same place, that would be true. But it is clear that we're not all starting at the same place. And it's also clear when it's reflective in how how communities are prospering or getting along, as we look at ourselves and say, are we making investments that are providing us a return? Do we have the infrastructure that is getting into the bowels of those communities in order to make real change? And Senator Miller, I just don't think that we use that same standard when we look at workforce development folks. Those who have us in their base, who are paper tigers. They have more capacity because they have great grant writers, and they're able to say with some degree of clarity that here's what we're doing. And no one really pulls the onion back in order to really see, are they really doing what they say that they're doing? And I will quote, a comic who is Mom Mabley, who says, if you do the same thing that you always done, then you're going to get what you always got. It means if you keep doing the same thing, then we're going to get the same outcomes. And that's why these communities are still at the same place. And so from my vantage point, that there's accountability there. We made sure that in the equity grants that there was notions of accountability because they have to come back, they have to report, they have a reporting mechanism also with deed, there's oversight. And when we think in terms of taking money out and taking money away from these communities, and then say, well, if they're doing okay, then we'll put it back, or we'll fund them going forward, or we'll see what we need to do. You know, and I know it's always harder to put money back once you take it out. And so in this particular bill, no matter how well-intentioned, I think it takes away from the notions of consistency. When we make an investment, I just heard us talking earlier today that when there was a problem on the Iron Range, and I believe that we should be very surgical, that we invested $15 million over 10 years or whatever the commitment was. And the reason why we had that timeline is because we wanted consistency. We wanted them to be able to rely on this funding and to really do all that it would take in order to make sure that they could concentrate and be very energized and focused. And so I just hope that we will stay away from it. And the last thing that I'll say on this issue, and I'm not to blame for whatever just happened out there, Tory is? Okay, I see. Reduction in the budget on some of the programs that you really like as far as the competitive programs. Programs, from our vantage point, there's no nexus between the equity funding because we didn't take money away from one in order to fund the other. It was supposed to be new funding from our understanding, and it was supposed to be in the base, and that's why we did it that particular way, because we wanted also to make sure there was geographical balance across the state. And so I just want us to be really clear about that. I wanted to speak to those issues that you talked about there. So I will go to
Senator Miller, to that point.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Champion. I don't know where the money came from. All I know is the programs that I mentioned were reduced by $27 million. But I will say that I think you made my argument that I agree with you. We need to peel the onion back. We need to make sure that these organizations are doing what they say they're doing, and that's why I made the commitment to make sure that every commitment that we had in 18 and 19, we fulfilled that commitment as far as the direct appropriations go, and then that gives them a chance to get that money into their system, get it working, and then we'll bring them back in front of our committee that you and I are both on, and we'll make sure that that they're doing what they're saying they're doing and that they're getting the results that we intended them to get. And if they are, we can look at providing some additional funding. If they're not, then we either help them get to where we want them to be, or they don't get the funding that that was committed to them. And I do want to note that in the TAILS, many of the competitive grant program funding is increased, and the organizations that are receiving direct appropriations in 18-19 would certainly be eligible to apply for those grants. And another conversation that Senator Champion and I have had, and I've also had with the department, is next session, my commitment is we'll come back and we'll put some parameters around those competitive grants and some goals, and how do we make sure that everyone is on a level playing field when they're applying for those competitive grants. And we'll have time to discuss that next year because those grants will take place. The additional funding will be in the TAILS.
Great. Senator Cohen.
So, Madam Chair, to follow up on Senator Champion, first let me ask, just so I make sure I understand the dollars because I don't serve on your committee. Last year, the money appropriated was, relative to this biennium, or this upcoming biennium, $35 million. So in the next biennium, that was the total amount, whether it be direct grants or the competitive grant program. How much money is appropriated in total for the subsequent biennium?
Senator Miller.
Madam Chair, unless fiscal knows, we'd have to go through the spreadsheet and Madam Chair, Senator Cohen, can you?
Well, Madam Chair,
we have so the budget is, Madam Chair, Senator Cohen, we have, our budget target was $10 million one-time funding over the base.
yes.
Senator Cohen.
Madam Chair, Senator Miller, my particular question is that we appropriated for the equity programs, $35 million for this biennium. And so I'm wondering in the tails budget, what you appropriate between direct appropriations for the equity funding and the competitive grant program. You're putting everything into the competitive grant program.
Madam Chair,
Senator
Senator
Miller.
Cohen, there's $18 million in the competitive grant programs in the
So-
tails.
All right, so, Madam Chair, if I can offer a couple of comments. First of all, and I take, to be honest, a little bit of a proprietary interest, if the committee will allow me, this was placed in my supplemental finance bill last year. And Madam Chair, Senator Miller, members, if you'll recall, the original equity proposal, which was difficult last year, was approximately $100 million. And so there was a pretty significant understanding that there were needs throughout the state with underserved communities, with communities that were at significant economic risk, to try to do something that Minnesota had never done before in quite this fashion, to provide support for these programs, both through the direct appropriations as well as through the competitive grant program. And there was an agreement reached with the House that the money would be placed in the tails, that obviously in a supplemental finance bill in the second year of the biennium, you're going to try to put as much money as possible into one-time spending. And last year's supplemental finance bill had lots of one-time spending. There were some exceptions to that, and this was a very notable exception, and it was based upon not simply this program is a good program and that program is a good program and so on, but it was based upon a history, an understanding of the history, and to be honest, an ignorance on the part of state government over many, many years of why there was the need to provide additional support separate from generic programs. I mean, you talk about the Job Creation Fund. I mean, we're at high employment and full employment at this point, and we're providing money to employers who in all likelihood would probably create a job anyways. But even putting aside the merits or demerits of the program, do we have any guarantee that the money going into the Job Creation Fund is going to be used in a way to target underserved communities, communities that suffer significant economic dislocation? There's no guarantee of that. That's why the equity funding was done in that fashion. And I think it's, as Senator Champion points out, it's a significant mistake to regress from what the commitment was last year in a way that significantly decreases the funding that goes directly to these targeted areas. Not just simply a geography, but targeted communities of color and communities at risk. And Madam Chair and Senator Miller, you talked about what some of the theories you have relative to economic development are, and I certainly agree. I had, for X number of years, the same jurisdictions you have with state departments, with all the economic development programs, and took a look at where we were providing money for job creation in a way that was otherwise not being done on a general basis, but also looked at providing appropriations for areas not otherwise served. As an example, on a more contemporary basis, broadband would fit that, because rural economic development is underserved economic development. So the hope is that there's a boost from the state for rural economic development. Of equally critical need on a contemporary basis, not going back to what I did X number of years ago, but equally critical, and maybe arguably even more critical, is the fact that we have communities in Minnesota, and certainly, to be fair, they are probably concentrated in the metropolitan area, and I should add, not in my district, but concentrated in the metropolitan area, but it's throughout the state of Minnesota. It's not just simply in Minneapolis, St. Paul, or some first-ring suburbs, where we have folks that just have had a much more difficult time, as Senator Champion points out, getting ahead of the game. And that's why I think it's unwise. And I recognize, Madam Chair, and I've talked about this in this committee now a couple of times, the pressure you face, and I don't care if you're going to use a budget target of, an extra $3 billion for this committee. It doesn't matter what the targets are. They're always going to be difficult targets. And I recognize with priorities that may or may not be different from the minority caucus, this year's minority caucus, where there are going to be some priorities that are different, that, that there's a different budget assembled. But I think this is a particular instance where there was a recognition last year on a bipartisan basis, because the agreement reached relative to continuation of the money in the base was done with the Republican House and with the leadership of the Republican House. It was done with Representative Knobloch, Speaker Dowd, Representative Garofalo was involved with it. This was not done something by a bunch of liberal Democrats from St. Paul, Minneapolis, and a recognition that this is something that needs to be done. And to regress on that money this year, I think is a mistake. And I don't necessarily disagree, Madam Chair and Senator Miller, with your concern in terms of, do we have the ability as an individual, as a legislature, to take a look at individual programs and make a quick judgment? I know some of these programs and can speak to them, and I do think it matches up with what we're looking for in terms of high-quality programs. But I would suggest whether the money is going to be put into direct appropriations or put into a competitive grant program with DEED, where they have more time and more ability to study individual grant applications. I think the regression in terms of dollar amount suggests that we think the problem's been half solved. And I don't think anybody in this room, no matter what somebody's party, ideology, geography is, would suggest that these problems have been solved in the last year, or that these communities have been brought up to a level of all the rest of us from around the state that have been in better economic situations. So part of what you say, I don't disagree with in terms of, should we give more effort or more dollars to a competitive grant program? I can accept that argument in some fashion. But the regression on the total amount, when actually we should be spending more money than what we appropriated last year for what's going on around the state, I just think is something that I'm not quite sure where I see the rationale.
Senator Miller.
Madam Chair and members, one of the most consistent messages I heard throughout the state, whether it was metro, suburban, greater Minnesota, was on the importance of the Minnesota Investment Fund, the Job Creation Fund, the Job Skills Partnership, and workforce housing grants. We heard that from darn near every community throughout the state, how important those organizations are. When we go through the language of the bill, we made some changes. We took several of the governor's recommendations. One of them is to prioritize the Job Creation Fund to communities in greater Minnesota, as well as women, minority, veteran-owned businesses. And we lower some of the criteria for those organizations. But we heard throughout the state the importance of those organizations. We also heard some really good initiatives in our committee. The North Market, so Pillsbury United is a nonprofit organization. Senator Champion carried the bill. They're looking to build a grocery store and health and wellness center, community center in North Minneapolis. It's about a $6.5 million project. They've raised over half of that privately. They came to the state. They needed a little extra boost. We have $2 million in this bill this year to fund that grocery store and community center, wellness center, which, based on the testimony, and Senator Champion can correct me if I'm wrong, but this will provide some immediate economic development, job opportunities, health and wellness opportunities for women and families and individuals in an area that really needs it. So we did try to look at the entire state, and we tried to prioritize in areas that needed a priority. And based on the feedback that we received on a statewide basis, I feel like the bill in front of us does a pretty darn good job of promoting job growth, economic development, workforce opportunities, workforce training throughout the state of Minnesota. That's what our priority was, and I believe that this budget does that.
Senator Cohen?
So, Madam Chair and Senator Miller, I'm not going to belabor this too much longer, because I don't disagree that there's a lot of good things in this bill. And knowing you as I do, I have no doubt that you put together a bill in a very skillful way and in a way that is a fair bill. I'm not suggesting to the contrary, but I am talking about what I do think is a gap in the bill. Let me, if I might, just offer one particular example. And to be fair, it's something where I authored the original legislation from last year, and that was the grant that was made to Ujamaa Place. And that's an organization that, I mean, one of the things that's happened to all of us in the legislature is we get exposure to things that we wouldn't otherwise come across. And organizations, nonprofit organizations that do just a spectacular job. In the case of Ujamaa Place, this is an organization that deals, and it's principally a St. Paul organization, but it deals with people basically in the African-American community, folks who are significant offenders, people who are coming out of incarceration who have no ability to do anything. They don't have the educational background. And we can get into all the sociological stuff, and that's not my intent. We're talking about people who are Minnesotans who don't have the job skills. They don't have the education skills. And this program is an all-encompassing program. One of the board members very active is former Senator and St. Paul Police Chief, now Metro Police Chief, John Harrington. There are a number of other significant community leaders who are involved with this program. And I've had a chance to look at this program in a very in-depth way, and the work they've done with individuals who otherwise would just be lost and back on the street and arguably, potentially reoffending, hurting citizens, stealing from citizens, is to have a remarkable rate of success. So is Ujamaa Place something that's going to be covered in the competitive grant program with half the money, or is there something else displaced? So, like I said, I could make your argument on the competitive grant program because I do think, although we try to take a careful look at a lot of the programs that come in front of us, there's no question that it's real easy for us to say, yeah, let's give money to this program, and we don't necessarily have the time to do the kind of in-depth work. But I mentioned that program in particular. I could go through some of the others. But if we don't find some continued public support for that particular program, there are going to be other public consequences as a result.
Is that your first or second comment, Senator Cohen?
Well, that was my second comment.
That was your second comment, okay. And Senator Eaton?
Madam,
When I
Senator Eaton.
respond to him? No? Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Miller, I guess I just wanted to express my disappointment that we've decreased the competitive grants by $7 million. We have a $1.6 billion surplus. I've worked really hard on the opioid problem throughout the state. And one of my projects was to try to get some jobs and things for people to do to give them some hope on the White Earth Indian Reservation. And I see you've cut the grant in half for the next biennium and then ended it. I assume that means that you know something I don't, that the opioid epidemic is going to end in 2019. I'm being facetious, sorry. But I'm kind of channeling where Senator Cohen's coming from over there. There are dire consequences to these cuts. 400% is the increase in opioid overdose deaths, and it's even worse on the reservations.
Senator Miller.
Madam Chair, and first I'd like to, Senator Cohen, Ujama Place, fantastic organization. They do also receive some money from the competitive grants, so they are already getting some of those funds, so they would certainly be eligible. So they're getting both money from the competitive grants and the direct appropriation. But I want to give organizations like Ujama Place the opportunity to come back and share their story. And if they are getting results, this is out of the Workforce Development Fund. If they're doing workforce development for folks, they'll qualify for that money, but I want them to come back to the legislature and share their story. Senator Eaton, the White Earth money hasn't even been appropriated yet. So the money that they were supposed to get in 16, 17 is still sitting there because there's still some paperwork or there are some issues that they haven't been able to qualify for that appropriation. So that's the 16, 17 money. 18, 19, we're not reducing them. They're getting the same amount that was committed to them in 18 and 19. In 2021, just like all the other direct pass-through appropriations, we are cutting that funding off. Again, we want them to come back, share their story. If they're getting results, then the legislature will reconsider that money. But as of right now, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but White Earth has not received any of the money that was supposed to be appropriated last year.
Senator Eaton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Miller, I didn't know none of it had been spent yet, but I do have to correct you that it says here that you're cutting it to 125,000 for 18, 125 for 19, and it was 250 both times last time.
What is it?
Senator Miller, that is the base.
Madam President, Senator Eaton, the general fund amount is reduced and it's funded through the Workforce Development Fund at the same amount.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator Cohen, you good? No more questions? No, I'm being sincere, if there was anything. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Senator Champion.
Okay, thank you. Two things, Senator Miller. One is, first, I'd like to move the A12 amendment.
Okay. Senator Champion moves the A12 amendment.
Okay.
And
Is that
Madam Chair,
something
would
that
you
you
like me
could?
to explain it?
Yes,
while it's
please,
coming
while
around?
it's being passed out. Is it something you can without?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair. In the equity funding, we appropriated money for capacity building. And that money was going to go to DEED, and DEED was going to provide that capacity building. After talking to DEED and also talking to Senator Miller, I'm of the opinion, and I believe that I'm supported as well, that the capacity building grant program will be developed through a request for proposals process where they would select a nonprofit organization to administer the capacity building grant. And the selected organization must have demonstrated experience in providing financial and technical assistance to nonprofit organizations statewide. And the selected organization shall provide financial assistance in the form of subgrants and technical assistance to small to medium-sized nonprofit organizations, and they have to underscore and develop programming that addresses economic disparities in underserved cultural communities. We thought it would be best for there to be a sustained organization who can provide that service to these organizations, and we believe that this is the best way by which to do it. And so it would be $500,000 each year, so it'd be $1 million for the biennium.
Senator
And
Champion,
that's
which is
the
the same amount as what
Yes.
the bill is, yes. Senator Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Senator Champion and I have discussed this. We met with DEED last week, and we feel like this is the best approach. I would consider this a friendly amendment, and I'd like to
Further
thank Senator
discussion?
Champion for bringing it forward.
Further discussion on the A12 amendment? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion prevails. Senator, Senator Champion, you have another word?
Yes.
Oh.
And the only other thing that I'd ask Senator Miller to also think about, is, and I did have an amendment for this. This is after I thought about it today, and I didn't want to throw the amendment on you without you having an opportunity to look at it. So I'm just going to talk about it, and then we can talk about it later. And I hope that you'll consider it. So I would like to turn your attention to the vocational rehabilitation amendment, agreement or program. This is a federal-state partnership that provides short-term front-end employment services for persons with significant disabilities. And so the vocational rehabilitation program provides vocational counseling and guidance, skills training, and job placement services. Now,
Senator Champion, do you have an amendment in front of us?
I do have an amendment, but I'm not going to offer it. I'm just
You
gonna-
aren't, okay, I'm
I just
sorry, I
want
didn't
him
hear
to
that part.
think about this.
Okay. Thank you.
That I did look at also in the bill, that there is the extended employment program that provides ongoing services to people with disabilities also, once they're already working. So absent the front-end services provided by the vocational rehabilitation program, persons with significant disabilities will not be able to secure the employment needed to participate in the extended employment program. So if there's no job, then there's no need for the ongoing support provided by the employment, the extended employment program. And if we need any more clarification, Deed can also provide us some information, but I hope that you would think about the governor's recommendation and look to put more money in the vocational rehabilitation aspect of things, because if those two things don't go hand in hand, then it's going to be imbalanced.
Senator Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Champion. And we did discuss this in the Jobs Committee towards the end. Deed brought it to our attention that there's $7 million in the vocational rehab area that is needed, and there are some federal dollars tied to that, and there are some changes at the federal level that are basically some unfunded mandates at the state level, the way I understand it. We heard it late in the process. It was brought to my attention late in the process. So Senator Champion, I am committed to working with you, Indeed, and you, Madam Chair, to figure out a way to make sure that we comply with that. It's certainly a passion and a priority of mine to make sure that we're taking care of our most vulnerable citizens and providing opportunities for people with disabilities. That's showed in the bill with our additional investment in extended employment. But Senator Champion, my commitment is we'll work with you and we'll do this together, and we'll try to figure out a way to get it done.
And last but
Senator
certainly
Champion?
not least, and I just want to say openly to the committee, thank you to Senator Miller for really working really hard on this bill, and he's been really engaging. And so I just want you to know openly, because I often talk to you about all these things privately, that I appreciate your hard work, and we'll continue to work hard together because it's for all of us, and that's what it's going to take in order for us to make the necessary changes in this great state of Minnesota.
Thank you, Senator Champion. Senator Westrom, amendment?
Madam Chair, I have an amendment I'd like to offer regarding broadband and a modification to a challenge process. Staff could maybe,
Senator Westrom, do you
A14,
have the
I think it
amendment
is.
drawn up?
I think it's the A14.
A14? Okay.
Senate Council, can you verify that?
Yes, it is the A14.
A14. And
Is it something that you can discuss?
briefly?
Yes.
Oh,
I
yes.
think it is. Okay, go ahead.
And Madam Chair and Senator Miller and I discussed this afternoon, but it's language to the challenge process and the rural broadband grants. Something I've talked to many of the proponents and opponents, and the modification seemed acceptable to all the parties, with the idea and the spirit being to not have taxpayer dollars funding projects that are close to ready to being built by the private sector, or a party, or the incumbent, or a current provider is already making plans to do the upgrades. The tweak to the challenge system in the statute would be, rather than an 18-month delay, or a delay for the party that they got challenged and had the grant knocked out, it would be 12 months. And it would add a little teeth to it, so if a party that challenges a grant didn't follow through on their project that they said they were coming forward with, it would make them ineligible for the funding of rural broadbands for the next 3 years. So those are the two changes, but would sunset in 2 years, so it will force and bring back a discussion next year by Senator Miller's committee to examine this closer.
Thank you, Senator Westrom. Senator Westrom moves the A14 amendment. Ms. Fontaine, there are some technical
Yes.
changes?
Madam Chairs and members, and Senator Westrom, there was an error in the amendment that I prepared. The intent on line 1.32, and the intent regarding the amount of time that the provider, the challenger, had to complete construction was, currently it's, they have 18 months, but under your amendment, on line 1.32, it should read 12 months, not 18 months. So paragraph B, clause 2 shall be 12 months after the date the grant awards are made.
Madam
And-
Chair,
Senator Westrom?
I'd incorporate that in as that oral amendment.
Okay, thank you.
And then,
Ms. Fontaine?
Madam Chair and members and Senator Westrom, because I did this rather quickly, I think on page 2, I wanted to just clarify that on line 2.1, after cycles, insert denied. So it would read, the number of grant cycles denied under paragraph D shall be 3 grant cycles. And so I would just.
Ms. Fontaine,
have
can you
those two.
say that again, please? I guess I'm,
Should read, the number of grant cycles denied
oh,
under paragraph D.
denied.
Shall
Okay.
be 3 grant cycles. And then,
Okay.
as Senator Westrom mentioned, it would, the paragraph, this new paragraph would expire on June 30th, 2019.
Senator Westrom, do you move that?
Madam Chair, I would.
Yes. Senator Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Senator Westrom and I did have a conversation earlier this afternoon. I'm cautious. I'm hesitant. We had a lot of discussion in the Senate Jobs Committee regarding broadband, and we did incorporate one of Senator Westrom's provisions to really focus on the unserved areas by lowering the thresholds of the local match from 50% to 35%. And as a committee, we made a commitment to coming back next session and really digging in deeper to the broadband discussion after one more cycle of grants go out. Senator Westrom and I talked about this earlier. I share his concerns with the 12 months versus 18 months. Right now, if there is a challenge, it can go on for 18 months, and those communities and those providers miss out on 2 grant cycles because it's 18 months long. So the 12 months would be only 1 grant cycle. So I understand where he's going with that. I'm supportive of his efforts. And then he wanted to put a little bit more teeth into it, and if there is a provider that says they're going to expand into an area and they don't do it, they don't follow through with that commitment. From what I understand right now, they would be out for 2 grant cycles, but, well, in this language, it's clear that they would not be able to apply for 3 grant cycles if they make that commitment and they don't follow through with it. So I believe that's what Senator Westrom is trying to accomplish with this amendment. And we had the conversation. I'm neutral on the amendment. I'm at the will of the committee. I think the Jobs Committee is the better place to do it next session, but I also understand what Senator Westrom is trying to accomplish in getting this into place with the upcoming grant cycle.
Senator Champion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Miller, I would hope that you would oppose this amendment because you are the chair of the Jobs Committee, and this did not go through the Jobs Committee. This has some policy implications, and one person in particular who would want to speak to this issue is Senator Simonson. He's been very vocal about it. We are not having any public dialogue that would be important here, and this amendment circumvents that process. So I would be a little challenged as a committee member for my chair to be neutral on this amendment without the necessary process being adhered to. So with that being said, I'm not as diplomatic as the chair is being tonight. And so I'm asking you to oppose it because this is policy and this is something that our committee should wrestle with as opposed to this being decided here in the Finance Committee.
And Senator Champion, I don't know if I'm diplomatic, but I do think this amendment needs a little more work, and I would appreciate that work to be ongoing, Senator Westrom. I do agree that this isn't the place to be fixing up policy.
Well, Madam
Senator
Chair, my discussion with Senator Miller was that I thought it was okay to bring it tonight. If he's got concerns, I'm not going to push this amendment at this point, and we can find another place to add it on. So, thanks.
Thank you.
I'll
Senator
withdraw,
Miller,
Madam
you're okay
Chair.
with that?
Yeah, Madam Chair, like I said, I had a discussion with Senator Westrom. I expressed to him that I shared his concerns. I shared his concerns of the amendment. I did have concerns doing it in Finance Committee, so Senator Westrom and I will continue the conversation. And after seeing, this is the first time I've seen the amendment, and Senator Westrom, the amendment still needs a little bit of work, so maybe the best route is to withdraw it now. Okay, and then we'll continue to work on it.
Thank you. Senator Westrom withdraws the amended A14 amendment. Thank you. I do know there is a technical amendment. Mr. Modern, please.
Madam Chair and members, and this is just a small change to some of the fiscal language. On page 20, line 10, there's a rider that refers to an appropriation for transfer, and that's just money is either transferred or appropriated, but not appropriated for transfer. It's just something that we're trying to change this year in the way the bills are worded. So on page 20, line 10, the suggestion would be to delete appropriated for transfer and insert transferred.
And Madam Chair, Mr. Bodnar, this was a Senator Bach
Ms.
bill,
Fontaine.
and I did just pull that language from there, and I did think it was strange as well, but I didn't question the former majority leader, so I just put it in there.
Okay. Senator Fischbach moves that oral amendment. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Senator Miller, I do have a question, too. Actually, it's for Mr. Bonner, and it's peppered through the bill, dealing with, let me get my two. This appropriation is available until spent, and it's on page 4, it's page 5, page 7. I think I just, page 3. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Mueller will explain that. If we can have an explanation what that means exactly.
Madam Chair and members, this language is used in a number of appropriations. Having covered this area before, I know some of these appropriations are unique in that some of these projects do go on for a while, and some of them, like on page 3, line 6 and 7, and page 3, line 14 and 15, dealing with the Minnesota Investment Fund and Job Creation Fund, there's some revolving loans that go out and go in and out of some of these programs also. I did check with last year's, or the appropriation bill for 2 years ago, and every one of these areas that shows appropriation is available till spent, the same language was enacted 2 years ago in all these same programs. So while it may go around some of our budgeting rules, it is consistent with prior use. And I don't know if someone from DEED is here to say why they need this language on many of these programs or not, or whether we want to get into that. But it is consistent with the previous appropriations for these programs.
Questions on that?
Madam Chair, members,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
believe
Ms.
the
Fontaine.
statute for the MIF statute and the Job Creation Fund statute do specify that the appropriations for the programs are available until spent. I can't find the exact citation, but I'm fairly certain that I did look that up.
Thank you. Senator Laurie.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I've got, I was just paging through the spreadsheet, and I think I don't know, I can't quite make the math work on lines 343 and 344. Just in the general support division, it doesn't seem like the FY 18-19 and FY 2021 numbers tally up to the numbers in 18 and 19? And I don't know if those totals, so I mean, like 500 and 800 has always been 1,300 when I've done it, but, and you got 600 here. And I don't know if that rolls up into tallies somewhere. I tried to, I lost track of it. I couldn't find it. I couldn't follow it all the way through the spreadsheet, but there does appear to be some math errors, and I don't know the formulas. So did those,
Mr. Mum.
Madam Chair, Senator Laurie, thank you for pointing that out. Yes, there is a mistake on line 343. The appropriation for the biennium should not be 600. It should be 1.3 million. However, the formulas for my spreadsheet look at the per year totals, so this doesn't affect the bottom line.
okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Thank
So
you,
as
Senator.
long as they work off the years, we should be good.
Senator Marty.
Madam Chair, on Senator Laurie's one, the next one, yeah, they were off by 1,000 in the, well, I guess that's just the total of all funds, okay. But it still didn't add up. But and Madam Chair, again, I think I asked Senate Council to pull together a list of the policy provisions in this because I made the argument why I think we should pull all the policy out, have the A13 amendment to do so here.
Senator Marty moves the A13 amendment.
And Madam Chair, while it's being handed out, it's not saying that these are bad provisions. It's just, I think they should be carried separately in a separate policy bill and debated that way.
Deleting Section 4, Section 8, Section 9, Section 10, Section 11, Section 12, Section 13, Section 14, Section 8, and Section 9 on those pages. Okay. That's a big amendment. Senator Miller.
Madam Chair and members, is there anything left of the bill after? No, I'm just joking, just joking. I would respectfully oppose the amendment.
Discussion on the amendment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. No. The motion does not prevail. Senator Champion.
Madam Chair, again, back on 343, I just want to be clear. So on line 343, is it supposed to be both in 1819 and 2021 that it's supposed to be 1.3 million, or is it properly reflected there that it should be 1.3 in 1819 and then 1.6 in 2021?
Senator, or Mr. Mums?
Madam Chair, Senator Champion, it should be 1.3 for FY 18 and 19 and 1.6 for FY 2021.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's it.
Thank you, Senator. Okay. Any further discussion? Senator Ingebrigtsen?
Madam Chair, maybe staff can help me understand that. I should have brought this up when we were talking about, but this appropriation is available until spent. I'm just having a hard time with understanding that. Maybe it's the time of night, but I guess I've never seen that before. So how long of a period of time do these things go on, I guess? I know I deal with some legislation that you have a 3 or 4 project time, 3 or 4 years. If not completed, then it drops back to the bottom line. I'm talking specifically now about legacy funding, but how does this work? And then you see a 5% administration fee. Does that 5% just keep right on going until the money's gone? If there's no projects, I don't quite understand.
Senator Ingebrigtsen, we have Commissioner Hardy here to answer that question. Commissioner, welcome.
Madam Chair, Senator, with respect to the Job Creation Fund, the grants can be up to 7 years because as you think about the funds to the company, they have to create the jobs And so being able to create the jobs before we actually give the funding to the business, that's the requirement of the Job Creation Fund. So before you, if you do not satisfy the job goals that are laid out in the grant agreement, then we can take the money back. So it's based on you creating the actual jobs.
Senator Ingebrigtsen?
Okay, so I understand that part. So let's go to page 5 then, and maybe you can help me with this.
Are you on the spreadsheet, Senator Ingebrigtsen, or on the
No,
bill?
actually in the bill, 5.7 of the bill. Contamination site cleanup. Do you have anything to do with that as well?
Commissioner Hardy?
Madam Chair, Senator, with respect to the contamination cleanup, the ability to appropriate until spent, that is also in the statute of the actual program. These grants are going to municipalities to be able to clean up land. And as you think about contamination, sometimes the projects are phased in terms of the levels of cleanup. And so appropriating the funding, with the normal grant, you would think within a year, but it does take time that sometimes you're not able to clean up the properties within that year. And so the statute allows for, until the appropriation is spent, to be able to extend in the different grant rounds that we have for those programs.
Okay, and then
Okay.
just to follow up,
Senator
Madam Chair, I
Ingebrigtsen.
guess I understand that now. So then I think it talks about a 5% administrative fee. That's just one time, 5% of that total price?
Yeah, it's just one time over the top.
Commissioner.
Madam Chair, Senator, thank you.
Further questions, Senator Laurie?
Well, on this issue, then, I mean, I guess it kind of does beg the question, are there funds that have been appropriated over time that are still just sitting there, maybe on projects that never were completed? I mean, what happens if a company doesn't create the jobs and that money is appropriated and it's still just sitting there and never spent, or a cleanup that doesn't ever quite get finished? Are there monies sitting out there somewhere
Senator
that
Miller
have
needs
been
to find that.
appropriated?
Madam Chair, Senator, for example, with the Job Creation Fund, if the funds are not created, it's a revolving loan fund, and so we're able to be able to grant those funds out. And so it doesn't sit there, it goes back into the revolving loan fund, and so other communities are able to qualify for those funds.
Super. Good. Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it. Okay. Further discussion? Senator Cohen? Okay. The A11 will be passed out. Would you like to explain that as we?
Sure, Madam
Pass
Chair.
that
This is an amendment I'm offering on behalf of Senator Frentz, who could not be here tonight. It provides a small grant to the Small Business Development Center at Minnesota State. And I'm not sure, I don't know if Senator Frentz had a chance to talk to Senator Miller about this or not. I'm not sure the bill had a hearing in Senator Miller's committee, but it provides us small business development assistance in rural counties that don't necessarily have as much support as you might find in the metropolitan area. I would note a couple of things that Madam Chair, Senator Miller talked about, making sure as we make grants, we have some sense of what the history is, the success is. This amendment does have language that makes sure that there's a report back to the commissioner. Would also point out that it has a match for for private support as well. So I would move the amendment on behalf of Senator Frentz.
Senator Cohen moves the A11 amendment. Mr. Mom, can you tell us what this will do to the budget targets?
Madam Chair, members, this would increase the balance of the bill to $720,000 above the target.
So we're out of balance, yeah.
So Madam Chair, that
Senator
sounds
Cohen?
like that's not helpful.
What's not helpful is Senator Cohen's 5 of this 7 counties here are mine.
Oh, really?
Yes, they're all mine.
Well, Madam
And
Chair, that being
Madam
the
Chair.
case, let me double the appropriation.
Yeah, as a roll call, that's great.
Well, Madam Chair, in all honesty, I mean, Senator Francis talked to me about this and said it was a bill of his, and I didn't cross-examine him on, I guess a couple of these counties are your counties.
They are very much my kind. Senator Cohen, and we did talk to Senator Miller, and I think there is an appetite to do this. Senator Miller?
Madam Chair.
Perhaps not right this minute, though. But
Madam Chair, Senator Cohen, Senator Frentz talked to me about this just today, as well as Senator Rosen. We're going to continue the conversation. You're correct, he did introduce a bill on March 13th, so it was very late. We were pretty much already wrapped up. So he very well may have requested a committee hearing. Unfortunately, it was so late in the process that we weren't able to grant that, and I think Senator Champion would agree that we heard bills from Democrats and Republicans in committee. We just wanted the best ideas to come forward. Unfortunately, this one was late in the process, and we don't have the funding for it at this point.
Well,
Senator Cohen.
Madam Chair, that's a good lesson for all members of the legislatures to be aware of committee deadlines. Well, I wanted to present, again, Senator Frentz had asked me, it sounds like this, Madam Chair, since apparently this is an amendment that has as much of an impact in your district as Senator Francis' district, maybe I should, you're indicating that you're going to continue to work on this in some fashion. Maybe at this point I should withdraw the amendment.
Well, thank you, Senator Cohen. That would be very kind. We did, like I said, talk with Senator Miller on it extensively. I'm on the bill and would like to. And it's out of Mankato in Senator Francis' district, so it is important to both of us, but we just need to maneuver it.
So
Senator Cohen.
Madam Chair, I don't have any other amendments impacting your district unless you have some you'd like me to offer, but.
Well, I think there was almost an emotion to withdraw the 811 amendment. Did I hear that correct, Senator Cohen?
I said that a minute ago.
Thank you very much. The 811 amendment is withdrawn. Thank you, Senator Cohen. Any further amendments? Further discussion? Senator Cohen?
Well, Madam Chair, I don't have an amendment, but I do want to address one other issue, and Senator Miller and I have had conversations about this, and there are folks here from the Minnesota Film Board who could testify better than I can articulate, but let me just offer a couple of comments about this. I know Senator Miller has included some language and money in the bill for that purpose. I've never really addressed the issue in any detail, and it's something that I've worked on over the years. Obviously, I've been here for a while. I usually have had some pretty good success with things. This is something that's been more by fits and starts. Let me just offer a couple of comments, if you allow me, Madam Chair. I know you and I have talked about this a little bit. And I have had a chance to talk to Senator Miller about this and recognize that, again, targets are difficult. But we talk about economic development, and obviously everybody in this room understands I've been involved with arts, culture kind of stuff. This is economic development. Lots of movies that are made are, to be honest, not art. Not every movie made is on the waterfront. But what this involves is economic development in the state, and it fits the criteria that I've had, at least when I had jurisdiction over these programs, that it's public dollars spent to get a return to the state that would otherwise not be there but for some of the public dollars. And this is a program that when utilized properly, has had significant success in terms of bringing, one, tax dollars into the state that more than compensate for the actual appropriation. And when you talk about the economic spinoff, and there's obviously a lot of debate as to what is economic spinoff, Madam Chair, if you'll allow me, on a different issue, you were the author and spent an immense amount of time on the Viking Stadium, I think 5 years ago. And so that's something where we talk about not just simply a very significant public appropriation made, but what it means to the state in terms of economic development. Something like the stadium also means a great deal to Minnesota in terms of involvement, huge involvement on the part of the state. I mean, obviously, when we have Vikings football, that's all we hear about. So there are different kinds of economic development. I think this is something at a much smaller level that has a parallel to something like the stadium, in that if you don't spend some of the public dollars, you then don't necessarily have that activity in the state. In this case, very directly, because with the incentive program, and if you go to some of the glory days of Minnesota in the 1990s, you really didn't have incentives necessary. That's become something around the country. It's striking that the third largest market right now in the country is the state of Georgia, a state with a Republican governor, Republican legislature. It's become the third biggest market after one LA, second New York. Minnesota has the opportunity, if this were to be done right, to be a Georgia in that respect. Minnesota has several things going for it. One, the best secondary acting pool any place in the country outside of LA and New York. Second, accessibility. If I make the comparison to Georgia, the city of Atlanta is an impassable town. The Twin Cities, if you're looking at the metropolitan area, is very accessible, and it's very easy to do things in Minnesota. You're 45 minutes away from farm country, if you're in the middle of Minneapolis. You're an hour and a half away from lake country, or even less. So there's a number of ways that Minnesota becomes quite accessible and is very attractive. And the third thing is that you have a crew base, a craft base that is of far higher competence than you'll find in many other areas. So we would have the ability, if done on a continuing basis, to actually create an ongoing industry. The Film Board, over the last couple of years, with more limited dollars, has created approximately 5,000 jobs. If I'm not mistaken, I think about 60% are union jobs, so at union scale, somewhat less are non-union, but also relatively high-paying jobs, because some of those positions tend to be at the higher professional level. Recently, for instance, HBO shot a pilot here in October, and it's my understanding when HBO does a pilot, in almost every instance, it goes to series. That's something that would produce an ongoing economic activity. It's my understanding that in cities or areas that have ongoing series, a good example would be Baltimore with House of Cards, where the activity generated is immense and ongoing. So I just want to raise that. I don't have an amendment to offer on this, but I think it's something that I would hope folks in this legislature would continue to take a look at. Would hope the department would take a look at. There really hasn't been support from a governor with this since probably Governor Carlson. And like I said, with some limited public dollars, you produce a significantly greater return, and you actually create an industry that would work for the state of Minnesota. So I just want to make the comments. Again, I don't have an amendment.